Hello YouTube, we are here with our best friend Johann Sebastian Bach, and we're going to look at Sinfonia number 5. Maybe not a famous Sinfonia, I don't know which ones of these are particularly famous, but we're going to talk about structuring the piece and how to make sense of it basically and piece it together. Okay, so this is the one that goes like this. Okay, and this is the one we're looking at here, Sinfonia number 5. So I have my handy little online version here so I can show it on the screen. But keep in mind when it comes to, we don't need that picture in picture, when it comes to Bach inventions and sinfonias, it's really hard to find a good online copy. There are, as far as I have found, none on Sheet Music Archive. There's a whole bunch of them there, but they are all either hard to read or they have lots of things added in the score that we don't want. So I like the Henley edition when it comes to Bach. That's just my favorite thing. Call me old school, that's fine. This is a very old copy I have here on the side. And if you do have the Henley copy of this Sinfonia, you'll see that there's 2 versions of it. Yeah, we actually have it twice. Sinfonia number 5 with a little star next to the 5 there. And then over here we have, again, Sinfonia number 5 with a ton of ornamentation. Okay, so today we're going to look at a non-ornamented version. We might come back to this piece and look at all the ornaments. I have the ornaments in this copy here, so I will try not to do most of them, but I might end up doing a couple of them anyway. So, okay, here's what we're going to do here. We're going to segment this piece. See, how can we cut it up, and how can we find what are the bigger chunks and what are the little chunks inside the bigger chunks. Why do we need to do this? It will change the way we play it. This will change the way you hear this piece. Okay, so if we start this, let's see how to do this. This thing is so ugly, but here we go. Here it is, not the music, just the score. So we have, let's say, all the way to here. This is going to be the end of our first section. Okay, so here we go. How does that make sense? See how that is the end of a first part. And I realize I don't have my microphone here. I hope you could hear me okay. I'm just going to put this thing on here. Like this. Quick and easy. Okay. Hope that's better. So, all right, that was our first part. But now within this first part that we've had, as you might have heard, we could split it up into a few parts. And I would like to split it up, or at least suggest that it should be split up into 3 different parts. So we have the first one. There's our first little phrase. It ends here and it continues, and we're finishing it with a little decrescendo. And then we have the next part of that. So again, this ends here and then starts again a longer phrase. Sorry, all the way to here. Okay, so this is the kind of thing we have so often in music, right? We have this little phrase. I want to continue that line here. Let's see if we can make this look beautiful. There we go. we have a little phrase, two little ones, and then a bigger one. Okay. There's our first one. And there's the second one. Here's the long third one. Or however we do that. So here as well, a little decrescendo there in the left hand when we have that. All right, this was our first section of the piece. Let's see if we can kind of guess, where does the second section go? Now here's where we have a lot of extra notes in the score. Without the ornamented version, it's usually written like this. Okay, that can be at least a little section there. Finishing here and starting again. Finishing with that. Okay. The funny thing is that these phrases are always ending with those four notes. Like here. Okay, next part. And I think that is the end of this main section here. Is going to be there. All right, we're just continuing that phrase. So we could say that this from here, where did we say we have a little breath? It's on the second page. It's a little poorly written there. Is kind of like, again, just like this, the beginning, we had those three phrases, depending how we looked at it, or two. Well, these ones go together. So again, F the beginning up to here. Now this section. But it continues. This is the second part of it. Finishing in B flat major. Okay. Then we start a new section. With a little breath there. And our next section starting after that. Okay, so here's where the new one starts now. Okay, I'm going to make these square so it's clear. All right, and that was the end of the old one. Okay, I hope some of this is making sense. We're just breaking this piece up into pieces. It doesn't look so pretty on paper here, but you know, that's part of the reason is because we have a kind of not so good copy from online. That's what's available. So we had that part. And here, right, whoops, is he giving me a hard time? Like that. We're finishing that section. Okay, they just happen to line up or finish all at the beginning of the bar on the score, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. It doesn't look very good. So okay, now we have another little section. It's kind of like an add-on. Okay, and here's where it gets a little ambiguous. You know, is Sorry, we had to scroll down a little bit here. So where we had that ta-da-dee-da, that was here, right? So, you know, what is this section? Maybe this part here, from here to here, maybe that's part of the one before. Maybe it's another section that has 3 parts to it. It depends how we choose to interpret the piece. So you see there's an interpretation also in the way we perceive the structure of the piece. You know, we had this piece. Let's say that all 3 of them go together. So I want to be clear here because I'm not sure it is yet. Let's take a little blue. Here we go. And we'll just label this 1 here. Okay, so that's the first part. 2, here's the next part. All right, 3, that's the next part. So far, we're quite sure of that. Now, we're not sure, does 4 start here? Or does 4 start here, like the beginning? Okay, and it might not be that there's one right answer, okay? I like to suggest that 4 actually starts here, okay? Why? Because we've been ending these phrases all the time with pa-pa-pa-pam, not there, but sorry, whoops. Oh boy, I'm terribly sorry. Doing things with an iPad is a challenge sometimes. We're always ending these phrases with ya-pa-pa-pam coming down as well here. Ta-ta-ta-ta. I'm just going to stick to red here to be consistent. See there, and we had the same thing here, right? At the end of all these phrases. But what about the beginning of the piece? It's more like right? So this could be the same in the second half here. That this is kind of ya-da-da-dee-pom-pom like this. I wish this looked more beautiful, but you know, it could be that it starts there. All right, so let's see how this might be played. If we go from, we didn't have bar numbers, but where we have number 4 right here. You can bring it over to there. Okay, there we go. Is he giving me a hard time? Yes, he is. Like this, we have that, boy, that little V here. Okay. And that little decrescendo there. I should write it later. I'd put it in the wrong place, sorry. This would go right here. All the way to here. And then we have that long phrase again to the end. Right? With a little slowing down at the end. We need that. Okay. So there we pretty much have it. Okay. For either this is starting where we wrote it here, 4, or, you know, let's interpret this differently and say that 4 started here. Okay, fair enough. Let's do it like this. We'll erase this little square. We'll put it like this. Let's say this is where we start the 4th part of this piece right here. Then I will play from number 3, doing it that way. Okay, I hope that made sense. That was just a different way of playing it. The other way was something more like this. Third last line. And then we continued here. So I prefer it that way. I'm just going to do a little switcheroo here. Whoops. So this would not be like a new section. This would just be sort of a continuation, and we go into it. But here we would be starting our section 4. So the point of this is that it's open to interpretation, right? There's not one way of interpreting the structure of the piece, but usually most of it is pretty clear cut. Okay, so now what does that do to the way we play it? You know, I would like to kind of demonstrate here what this might look like if we weren't paying attention to the structure the way we've done it. We'll just stick with the beginning here, okay? We'll just stick with this part here, number 1 and 2, or at least the beginning of number 2. Okay, if we're not thinking about any of this, we play it a bit like this. So it's a little harder to orient ourselves in the piece. Where exactly are we at? The most important spot where we did need to take time was where we had that number 2, right? And then the other ones are kind of, we have some flexibility with it, but here's how I like to feel this piece. Let me exaggerate all this. We'll play it. Okay, let's play it the right way first, all right? Here's if we are taking into account the structure as we've outlined it here. It would sound something like this. Okay, so see how clear that was when we had that figure 2 on the screen here. See how clear it was that we were starting something new when we got there. And then as for the, you know, the little breath in the first bar, it's kind of open to interpretation as well. We could connect those first 2 phrases and do a swell, okay? But then we'd have 2 parts to our phrase. We'd have this part, and then we'd swell here and die off here. Okay, and then we'd have our second part ending here. Those are the 2 parts to number 1. That's a way of looking at it. Personally, I prefer to split it up in 3. It just makes it less predictable. And there seems to be a little, what I want to say is that it's not necessarily one or the other. We can break up the first part of the first phrase here. We can put a little breath there without making it the most important breath. Okay, so that's the point here. So, I like to feel it this way. And then we have another one here. See how they're kind of like waves. Then we have a bigger wave, so that just contrasts it. There we go. End of first part. Now we get part 2. I need to turn that page. Okay, there's our first breath, or the first half of number 2. second half of it. Definitely come down there. Now we start a new section, section number 3. And I like to start this one a little softer, a little bit more plaintive, or yeah, there's something a little whiny about it. I'm not sure if whiny is the right word, but because we have all these different things happening now in our 3 voices, okay? So definitely that one can start a little less for a change. First breath. This is like the Goldberg variations harmonically, which is why I like to kind of end that phrase there on that F minor. It's our minor relative of our major key. No, that's not true. I'm sorry. We're in E minor. It's the 2nd degree F minor. So then we'd start our 4th part all the way from the end here. This is the one that brings us back. Little breath here. And last part. Bigger breath here. One, 2, 3, 4, 1. Isn't that a lovely little Sinfonia here? It's not like the other ones in that it's a little less dense, and it's a little less, the imitation is a bit different. Yeah, the left hand is doing something different in this Sinfonia, whereas in some of the other ones, we don't have the theme so much ta-da-dee-da in the left hand, and that's not always the case in the other symphonias. So we have that. If you love to analyze and do harmonic analysis, what you can also do is at the end of every one of these phrases, look at the key you're in. Look at the key you end in. And that's, the whole phrase gets grouped in that key. You know, so for example, our first phrase ended in E flat major, the home key, at the bottom of the page here. So we'll interpret that whole phrase as all these chords belonging to E flat major. Then if we look at the second phrase, well, the first part finishes in C minor. So we would analyze all this in C minor. And then B flat major. This one is going, this one ends on a 5 function. I don't want to get into all the harmonic analysis of here because it can get very complex. But I just wanted to talk about how to shape, not only shape, but how to segment, how to cut the piece up into its different sections, and then how that changes the way you play it. Very important. So again, you know, one last recap here. If we're not paying attention to the structure, let's go in the middle here. We're probably going to play this something like this. Okay, not very, you know, it is not good. It is actually not good. Okay, so when we see this as the ending of our second phrase, you would play it like this. And starting gently here, as we had said, I would love to add a little P here, you know. Why don't we get it here in blue, okay? So this should sound instead something like this. you see how that sounded? I hope you found that sounded much better where we had that 3 there on the screen. So that is about it. There was something I wrote here. Did we talk about this? Okay, this is not so much about the structure, but I think this is worthy of mention here. Where is that? Okay, where is that? I'm looking at 2 different copies here on the screen, and it kind of drives me a little wild. So, okay, it was this one. Let's put this in blue. Yep. Go to this beat here. And if you could widen into it, that would be great. But don't cut the phrase. We don't want to cut the phrase, right? The phrase continues. Whoops, different Sinfonia. Switch to red. This is one long phrase that goes all the way to here. Okay? So how would that sound? Okay, doesn't that sound great? And what we don't want when we do this, and looking at that arrow, that blue arrow, we don't want to cut the phrase up. It's quite the opposite. We want to, it's like a 2-part sentence, right? You know, in German you have a lot of this. You have these different parts of the sentence. Well, this is very similar. This is first part of the sentence, and this is the second part of the same sentence, right? And if you want to, coming back to that blue arrow pointing backwards, if you want to widen that well, just subdivide. So we'd have something like that, okay? Just to talk about a few other things in this piece. What about tempos? What about those trills in the other version? You know, I find Bach is pretty flexible. You can play it fast, you can play it slow. This is a pretty fast version of it. It's easier to understand the length of the phrases if you play a little faster. It becomes obvious. You see how obvious that becomes. So do we need to play it as fast as we've been doing it? No, absolutely not. We can do something like this. Not sure how we do that. Something like that. So that's fine too. And if you're doing the trills in this piece, you'll need to do it a little slower. You know, at least that slow. Something like that. Okay, everyone, that's it for today. A little Sinfonia number 5. Okay, maybe we'll look at a few more Sinfonias. If you are playing a Sinfonia write it in the description and let me know which one you're doing. I would love to know who's doing what and which Sinfonia is the most played. I would like to maybe make guesses about that. So thank you for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll have some cool announcements coming up soon. And that's it. Peace. Over and out.